Welcome to Close It Now, an HVAC sales training podcast with Sam Wakefield. Here, we'll build your reputation in residential HVAC sales to be the expert influencer in your market. You'll get insight into the top minds in the industry as they share their skills and hacks to help you on your journey. This podcast isn't just about selling more. It's about understanding your customers' needs and building efficiencies behind the scenes so you can sell more but work less while being top of mind when people think HVAC. Now, let's get started with your host of the Close It Now podcast. This is Sam Wakefield.
All right, well, welcome back. This is Sam Wakefield with Close It Now. I know it has been a little bit of a gap between the last few episodes and this one, but if you're listening now and in the future, you won't even recognize that or realize it. But for all of you faithful fans out there, everyone who's been listening since day one, basically what happened, that sometimes things change when you have a service that doesn't always keep up their end of the bargain. So basically, the service that was hosting the podcast turned out to have some glitches and some issues. So I had to make a change. So that explains, for all of you wondering, that explains the delay in a kind of a podcast gap, so to speak, that happened. But we are back better than ever. In fact, everybody, so the new schedule moving forward is, I'm really excited about it. It's going to be Mondays. We'll drop my solo podcast with just like we've always done, mostly with just me on here. Thanks for listening to me talk about the things that are important to sales, important to sales philosophy, important to the HVAC and just in-home selling and trades industries. And then every Friday moving forward, we're going to drop an interview, which is awesome. So that is what we're doing today. I'm really excited to bring on our guest today. And real quick before I introduce him, make sure to go join our Facebook group. It is just search Close It Now in groups on Facebook. It'll come right up. Or HVAC sales. We're one of the top Facebook groups and fastest growing on Facebook. And so go join the Facebook group. There's been some really amazing discussion lately. It's also a place that you can go to when you hear a podcast and something piques your interest, something you have more questions about. You can go in there and start it. It's just over 1,000 like-minded salespeople just like you, comfort consultants, comfort advisors, project managers, selling techs that are in there. It's not like the other Facebook groups. This is 100% positive, supportive group. If somebody comes in with attitude or is demeaning, like some of the other groups happen, we check them at the door. So don't worry about that. It's a completely neutral space where we're there. We exist to lift each other up and train each other, and so we all have a better experience, and we go out and crush it. It's at the end of the day, it's about making serving others, making a sale. We can only serve others by them giving us money and making the sale, and then go home and living a better life because of it. How many people can we touch and help today? So I am so excited about our guest today. We just happen. I love the beauty of LinkedIn and the beauty of social media, because sometimes the people you connect with are completely unexpected, but unexpectedly amazing. And this gentleman is definitely exactly that. We got on the phone the other day and had an instant connection. He thinks very similar to me, but I think you're going to really appreciate his insight because he comes from a completely different perspective. My guest today, his tagline, which I love so much, it says, "Become a fearless salesperson and double your sales this year by retraining your brain for success." Raise your hand if you would like to double your sales this year by retraining your brain. Absolutely. So quick intro for him. He is 18 years ago, he went from high tech to brain tech. He has been a keynote speaker in 14 countries, author of 3 books with one more that'll be coming out to be determined here in soon. I know he's working on it super hard for everybody. As soon as you hear him speak, you're going to want to pick it up as soon as it comes out. He also hosts the No Limits Selling podcast, which is hit a big mile marker that just hit over 200,000 downloads, which is fantastic. Congratulations. Love to introduce you. This is Umar Hamid. He is an NLP coach and just trainer. So let's have a really fantastic conversation today, Umar. Thank you for being my guest. And take a couple minutes and fill us in a little bit about why in the world did you go from high tech to brain tech? How did you make that transition and why?
So, hey, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me, Sam. This is going to be really cool. It's kind of interesting when you were doing that intro. Back in 1990, I ran a small computer consulting company here in Toronto, where I am right now. And one day, somebody was saying, if you want to get better, you should go see someone that does NLP. And it's like, what do they do? And it's like, well, they help you get unstuck. And I had just taken up the game of squash, which is super addictive. So everyone listening, never play squash. You'll become addicted. It'll become a lifelong passion. But I sucked at it. But a couple of months later, I got better. And 2-3 months later, I got better. So it was like plateau. But in my business, I was coasting. And one day it was like, wait a minute. How come I'm coasting in my business and improving in squash so much? I have passion for both. I have drive for both. I have love for both. I work hard at both. Why is one succeeding and not the other? And then I remember that NLP thing. So I went to see this woman called Una Elliott. I'm not sure what voodoo she did, but whatever the block was in my business life, she removed it. And I just felt it in my heart of hearts. And as I was walking out of that session, it was like, I'm going to learn this someday. And so ended up moving from Toronto to Silicon Valley, went into the high tech world. And NLP is kind of the birthplace is Silicon Valley. So became a practitioner, master prac, became an instructor. And in 2003, left high tech, went to brain tech because I realized my purpose in life very much is to help people break through their barriers so they become awesomer. And Sam, I know it's not a word yet, but if we keep it up, it will be. And so
we use awesomer all the time. I love it.
Brilliant.
It's great.
And so I did something insane about 4 or 5 days ago. I sold my house in Baltimore, Maryland. I got rid of all my possessions and I decided to go hit the road and go see the world as the pandemic is kind of winding down. I'm fully vaccinated, ready to go. So first step was Brooklyn. Second step was my sister's house in Brampton, Ontario, Canada, where I'm in quarantine on day 2 of a 14-day quarantine. But back in Toronto, where it all started, my journey with NLP. And now this is another journey where I'm actually from here going to Athens, Greece. And basically what I realized was just meeting people and talking to people and realizing what insights they have sometimes are the insights that I need, and also what we all need to understand that we are one people. It doesn't matter where in the world you're from. What really counts is, how can I do better? How can I make a better world for my kids? How can I have safety? How can I have happiness? And so that's my mission now. Not Kung Fu, Kwai Chan Caine, walk in the world, but pretty close to it. Right. So thank you for the invitation. And yeah, it's if we can get people to understand how the human mind works. So just before I pass it over to you, Sam, here's one vision I have in my mind of Einstein. This probably never happened, but I could see him in this large auditorium with 21 blackboards of ugly, horrible math that would give a mathematician a nosebleed. You and I would die on the spot. But he took that ugly math and came to the other side of it with a simple equation, E equals mc squared. Any kid in elementary school can figure out energy or matter from that equation with a calculator. They don't need to know the ugly math. And until now, the human mind has been this ugly, horrible mess that we don't understand. And my mission is, how do we, and NLP really helps a lot, condense it down to a simple little formula that we can use to get the insights and the breakthroughs that we need. And so that's where I am right now. And that's my mission. And that's why I'm so privileged to be here with you to get to evangelize it and also show some of your people before we finish today, some tools they can use right now today to get the change they want. So they kind of go, holy crap, Sam, that really worked.
Absolutely. I love it. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Two things here in just a minute, actually, for the listeners, because everybody knows that I mention NLP a lot,
Yes.
neuro-linguistic programming. But from an expert's perspective, it doesn't have to be a long, but just take a couple minutes here in a second and just kind of give us a quick overview of what that actually is.
Sure.
From coming at it from a very layperson's side of things, I know of what NLP is just from experiencing it. And I've read dozens of psychology books and NLP books. However, I'm not taking the courses like you. So that's the first thing. I would love for you to take just a quick second and break it down. But the other thing I just wanted to mention, I'm glad you mentioned this, is, everyone listening to this podcast knows that just about every single episode, I'm all about let's cut away the fluff, cut away all the extra junk, all the extra bullshit, and just let's get to something that we can apply immediately. So I love that we're on the same path there. Because as I know, as you know, with NLP, it doesn't have to be a big, long process. Most changes happen in an instant, and then you're completely different. So give us a quick overview of what, in your mind and from the expert's perspective, what NLP is.
So I'll give you a little bit of history and the beauty of NLP and its Achilles heel. So kind of the thought process when they started, it was John Grinder and Richard Bandler formed it. And this was kind of the philosophy was, look, there's people out there in the world doing exceptional freaking things that sometimes they don't even know how they do it. Like sometimes you can ask a tennis player, that serve is kick-ass amazing. How do you do it? And the guy goes, well, let me tell you how I do it. I do these 5 steps and I get this amazing serve. Or sometimes they say, I don't know, I just do it. But if they give you the 5 steps of how to do a kick-ass amazing serve, then you go to somebody that's, like mediocre at it, guilty, and you ask me, Umar, how do you do your amazingly average serve? And I go, well, that's easy. You do these 5 things. And it's like, wait a minute. How can the world's best person be doing the same 5 things that you're doing and there's totally different results? And what Richard and John found was that a lot of what we do happens at an unconscious level within us. Mm-hmm. And so they said, why don't we go interview the smartest people in different areas, from tennis to psychology to wherever, and figure out what they do, get that essence, and we could teach that essence to other people, and they'd be able to do it as well. And because of that, they said NLP is always evolving and changing, because if we find out that some medicine man in the jungles of Africa is doing something kick-ass amazing, and they're doing a bunch of dogma, blah, 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 but what they're doing is this process in the middle. Why don't we glean that process and we could use it everywhere? Mm-hmm. So NLP was expanding and changing as it went. That was the whole idea. When you have something that's always a moving target, it's hard to define it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that take NLP and teach NLP, from my point of view, which could be jaded, it's like NLP is the only way. It's the best way. And if you don't think it's the best way, you're wrong. And that wasn't the intent of NLP. It's like, this is the best way we know now, but we're probably wrong. But we'll find a better way to do whatever that is. So here's my definition of NLP. NLP is understanding how the mind works at an unconscious level, and understanding that change happens in an instant is what you said. So a good example of that is somebody that goes to, first grade, and the teacher says, Sam, could you read the next page to the class? And Sam goes, oh, okay. And then you mispronounce a word. And the teacher gives you a look, and the other kids snicker, and Sam decides, I'll never speak in public again. And he could stay in that instant. He went from being okay to an instant being stuck. And then Sam gets to a retirement community at the end of his career, and he's in this community, and the people that are running it are doing such a bad job. One day he gets pissed off and says, those damn people are screwing this place up. I'm going to run for president, even if it means I'm going to have to speak in public. And in an instant, that fear of public speaking just disappeared. So somebody went from 60 years to get to that breakthrough, or you can have somebody that goes to a psychiatrist for 6 months to get to the breakthrough. NLP is all about, why don't we get to the change point today? Mm-hmm. Like, get rid of all the bullshit and let's just get down to what's the essence of change. And that's what NLP is E equals MC squared, but for the mind. How to do simple techniques that create change immediately.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. This is something that is so influential with what we do as salespeople as well, because obviously our mission, our goal is to, in fact, in most cases, walk into a house basically as a blind date, and in 45 minutes to an hour be leaving that house with a fully committed marriage proposal
Oh yeah.
of 20, 30, 40, 50. I mean, I've done that with $100,000 projects. So in an hour to hand somebody $100,000 or $50,000, that's a
So,
big
can I correct you,
transition.
Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free.
Because you're not walking away with a marriage proposal, you're consummating the marriage. If you're
Yeah,
getting
absolutely.
$100,000, which is even better, right?
It's one step further. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really the whole goal of the marriage anyway, right?
Yeah. So yeah,
100%.
it is amazing. I've got some clients that actually do door-to-door vacuum sales,
Hmm.
which I was like, that's still a thing. It's
You're
still a thing.
right.
And they walk out there with like $8,000 orders, and it's like
Uh-huh.
it's magic. That's like sales where it should be.
Hmm.
Door to door, person to person. Who are you? Hi.
Yeah.
Can you come in?
Absolutely. In fact, door-to-door knocking it's a massive industry now. So many industries, especially like solar, alarm systems, pest control, they still embrace it. Like this is one of the main business models for a lot of companies, even still. And so, in fact, there's whole door-to-door knocking conventions that
Oh,
still
I
happen.
love
I
it.
know a lot of people in my team are really embracing it and rediscovering the magic of just talking to people in person out of the cold like that.
So a friend of mine does. His name is William Sullivan. He works for Eris, and one of the things he does is, when he's in the house they purchased, then he basically asks them, how's your arm? And they go, it's fine. And he goes, I didn't twist it too much, did I? Like, are you sure you want to buy this? And I didn't like pressure you in any way. And that's what he does. And so he's not forcing anybody to buy anything. It's just connecting, and it's his last
Hmm.
check to make sure he hasn't stepped over the line. And because that's not what we do when we go and do that. Is how can we serve the customers in a way that they get what they want and they get their problems fixed,
Hmm.
and we get to be the heroes that help them do it.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Let's pause here real quick and unpack that for a second, because that's powerful. Everybody, did you hear and understand what Umar just said? Because wow, because I get a lot of questions of how do we prevent cancellations. We get a lot of people in homes that'll make a sale, and then if it's not, well, there's two kind of philosophies, especially in the heating and air industry. One is, once you make the sale, get it installed as quickly as possible to not give them time to back out, which is definitely one way of doing business. I've always been a firm believer that people choose you for merit, not because you convince them and then hurry up and got it in there and didn't give them time to make another decision. I want them to choose me because it really is better.
Right.
But what you just said, to lock that in, wow, because now the second that when we double verify, basically, you've got them all the way through the sales, all the way through the close, all the way into enrolling in your program or signing the paperwork, and then to double check and be like, that didn't twist, that didn't hurt too bad, did it? You really do still want to do this. Man, that double confirmation is powerful.
And the thing is, if you do that line with like a salesy line, oh, I didn't twist your arm today. It's like, excuse my language, but if you
Yeah.
do it with a little bit of humor, and humor basically cuts through to trust faster than anything I know.
Mm-hmm.
And you do it with a little bit of humor, but the intent is, I just want to make sure you're okay, Sam. You do that and you'll build a stronger bond, and you'll get more yeses and less people backing out at the last minute.
Right. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, back on track. That's powerful. Hope everybody made notes there and use that immediately. That's something, those little things you can use right away that'll make a big difference for you. But back on track. So keep going.
So the question is, I won't say the last word because, we're a PG program, is like
Sure.
sometimes we want something so badly, and it could be in sales that what's curious is you have some people that, Umar, I can talk to strangers, no problem, but I can't talk to anybody that knows me. Because they're going to think that, I'm using the relationship, or I'm needy, or I'm starving or something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other people that's like, hey, I can talk to people that are my friends, piece of cake. Strangers, oh my God, I can never do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
the heart of who we are as human beings is where we hold our beliefs. And we have anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 beliefs that define who we are. We don't have an exact number for it, but it's a large freaking number. And how we
Mm-hmm.
get those beliefs, most of them by the age of 7, is somebody in authority says something that seems believable. And it could be a mom or a dad or an uncle or a grandparent or a teacher. Somebody in authority says something. And then we go as dumb little kids, okay. And it just goes in our unconscious and guides us from there on in that thought. So let's say the thought was, let's take an example of a family going to buy a new car one Saturday morning. Little Sally's in the back seat. She's 5. And mom and dad are in the front. They pull into the dealership. And mom turns to dad and says, sweetheart, if you really like a car, don't let the salesperson know, or they'll force us to buy it. Customers do that all the time. Hold the cars next to their vest. Little Sally's in the background hearing this conversation and goes, don't trust salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a belief that you cannot trust those sleazy wankers that'll force you to buy something.
Right.
And there's a really good chance that she'll become a salesperson. But she'll reach a certain plateau and won't go beyond it, because somewhere in her unconscious mind is, if I become a really good salesperson, I'll become one of those people that forces people to do things they don't want to do. And I don't want to do that. So they have all